Hi, this is Serving STFU, here to do 2 movie reviews. Not one but 2, and it's basically the old versus new. I just rented this from my local library. I used to have the DVD, but sadly it's gone. But it is basically The Secret of Nimh. The Secret of Nimh. I'm going to do both reviews of The Secret of Nimh and Timmy to the Rescue. To say, for those who haven't seen the original, The Secret of Nimh, you guys are going to love that one. It is dark. The trailer originally, unlike any other, basically brings up the suspense. Now, The Secret of Nimh was originally a book called Mrs. Brisby and the Rats of Nimh. The movie is basically about Mrs. Brisby trying her best to save her son's life, Timothy, who is basically the start of the second movie. We'll get to him in a bit. Afterwards, she finds out that her youngest son has pneumonia. She does her best to save his life, especially when the farm that they're living on is constantly dangerous. It's not until a couple days later, it's moving day. Basically, the farmer will get the plow and he will plow the fields, and most of the animals will have to leave. However, since given strict instructions not to move her son for the next 3 weeks, Miss Brisby does her best to stop the tractor with the help of Auntie Shrew. I'm going to try to do it myself. Brisby! 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 Yeah, I could do it yesterday, I couldn't do it today. But it's Brisby! Brisby! She's a shrew, she basically cares. But anyway, after getting some advice from Mrs. Shrew, or Auntie Shrew as I told, she's ordered to go see the Great Owl. The Great Owl basically is a wise animal of the forest. Of course, Mrs. Brisby is scared. Throughout the whole freaking movie, she is scared. She risks her own life trying to stop the plow. Then she goes to the Great Owl. The Great Owl at first is basically telling her that take your family and leave. Of course, it's not until she basically tells her name, not her full name, but the name of her husband as well, that she is known as Mrs. Jonathan Brisby. To it be known that Mrs. Brisby's name is not once brought out throughout this movie. She is basically known as Mrs. Jonathan Brisby. Her husband basically is connected not only to the rats, but through the forest, which she soon later on realized. As soon as she tells the wise old owl, the owl says, "You must go to the rats. They will help you move your family to safety, to the lee of the stone." Of course, Mrs. Brisby, she does go there. She goes to the lair of the rats, which is hidden in a rose bush. It's not until basically when she gets there, she goes into the thorn bush and she is attacked by another rat named Brutus. After meeting up once again with Mr. Aegis, the person who prescribed her the medication, he then basically takes her to the lair where all the rats are. With the help of Justin, of course, she is in a courtroom where the other rat named Jenna is basically trying to stop the rat's plan. The plan will be basically is announced later on. Jenna soon takes this idea of using Mrs. Brisby into his own plans. Soon enough after the court, Mrs. Brisby is taken to Nicodemus. Now Nicodemus is probably the best idea. He's the guy, oh my gosh, he is probably what Dumbledore is incorporated to. But he is awesome. He's a very old rat who slowly reveals the history of the rats to her. Basically, there were no more street rats until they were captured by Nimh. They're like a science institute that would experiment on poor animals. After giving a shot to over 33 rats and 11 mice. They got the side effect of becoming intelligent. They escaped, but due to an issue through the air vent, only 2 mice survived. That was Mr. Aegis and Jonathan Brisby. With Jonathan's help, they basically escaped, and which leads them to the rose bush. Mrs. Brisby is sad to know that her husband was killed by the cat dragon. And he basically gives her the stone, which you guys can probably see on the cover of the original DVD, the original VHS. And basically it was a gift that Jonathan has made to her. And when she basically asked why he didn't tell her anything about this, Miss Nicodemus says, because he believed the injection given to us slows the aging process. It says, to his soul, you will grow old, while he will remain young. I can't do a good impression, I'm sorry. After a while, she soon discovers the plan. The plan was simple. They would move from the rose bush to a place called Thornton Valley, which at the same time he says, we're going to help you. We're going to help move your block to the safety of the stone, to the lee of the stone. Mrs. Brisby is so grateful to them that she decides to volunteer to help drug Dragon, the farmer's cat. As soon as she gets there to the farmhouse, it's sad because as soon as she finishes drugging the bowl that has the cat food, she is captured by the son of the farmer, and he keeps her as a pet. He tries to keep her as a pet. As she is captured, she overhears the farmer talking to Nimh, saying, "Yeah, I don't care. I just want these rats out of here." And she basically fights to escape the cage. As this is going on, her family with Auntie Shrew, they're inside the... Pardon me. Hi, this is my sister's girlfriend's cat named Autumn. Say hi, Autumn. Okay. Go on, have fun. At the same time they're preparing to leave is when the rats actually set up a structure that will basically lift up the stone and move it. As the stone is slowly being moved, Jenna basically reveals his plan. He's using the home to crush Nicodemus. As the home is halfway through right in the middle, but Nicodemus is right underneath it, he cuts the lines, and not only does the whole structure fail, but the house almost literally falls on Nicodemus. Then we soon cut back to Mrs. Brisby, who finally gets out of the cage, which is basically a bird cage hanging on top. She slides down and she gets her things, which is hid through a hole in the floor, and she goes right over there. By the time she reaches her home, she sees that her home's in the mud, and Jenna is basically telling everyone we're returning to the rose bush. She mourns for a few moments for Nicodemus, but as soon as she hears him going to the rose bush, she basically tries to stop everything. She says, "Nimh is coming. In the morning, you'll all die if you don't leave tonight." Now Jenna, he's basically saying, "No way, don't listen to her. She's hysterical," and he attacks her right when Mrs. Brisby says, "You need to leave now." Just when Justin interferes, Jenna sees that she's wearing the stone, and he tries to take it from her. After a long row, it is revealed that Jenna basically sabotaged the plan. He murdered Nicodemus, and of course he dies. Of course, Mrs. Brisby is sad. Her kids are asking her mom what's going on, that everything's going to be okay. She's trying to be sure. That's when the block is slowly sinking into the ground. She freaks out and she's telling everyone, "Please help me," and all the rats are struggling to stop the house from sinking. And inside the house, the children are struggling not to drown in the mud. Martin, Larissa, and Tia or Clea, I don't remember. They're struggling not to drown. Of course, Mrs. Bisbee, she's trying her best, and just then, as the mud pulls in, the necklace comes off of her. And just then, and she's suddenly getting upset when the stone itself comes out. Remembering the words that Nicodemus has once said, that one with courage in her heart, the stone will grow a bright red, and it will reveal a power that no one can know. She grabs the stone, but it's boiling hot. It burns her hands. That not only when she drops it in the mud, she not only wants to save her son, but she wants to save her whole family. She digs her hand right into the mud and grabs onto the stone. As she grabs it, it shakes up and it goes right up to her arm, and the stone somehow kind of possesses her. I can say not possesses her, but it gives her full amount of power. That she has enough power to touch a rope that was attached to the house. So he lifts the house from the sunken mud up in thin air and moves it by itself to the lead of the stone. And once it's all over, she lets go of the rope and she faints. We soon cut to the end where you see the children slowly wrapping their hands, bandaging up their mom's hand. Of course, we do see Timothy Bell. He complains like, "Mom, I'm tired of staying there. I want to get up." She's like, "Well, you're not getting up. You're not getting up. No way." Of course, we get introduced, like for the final time. Jeremy, he's a crow, who is voiced by the guy who does the voice of Itchy from All Dogs Go to Heaven. I'm sorry to say I don't remember his name. He passed away a good couple of years ago. I love this guy. He was funny. Of course, throughout the whole thing, the whole movie, Jeremy is basically trying to impress and build a love nest throughout the whole movie. He goes to Miss Brisby after when a female crow bumps into him, and he asks for the stone. She says, "I gave it to Justin, who's the other rats." And she says, "Just be yourself." And of course, he has fun and he chuckles with the girl crow. And we end the movie on a happy note. We have a happily ever after. Whether or not the rats got to Thorn Valley, it's not known. Until then, the movie is good. The effects is awesome. We have suspense. We have a murder. We have mystery, and so on and so forth. This movie has almost all of it. If you guys haven't seen it, it's recommended you guys watch it. It's a pretty good damn ass movie. And Mrs. Brisby, I'm amazed she didn't get Mother of the Year. She deserves an award. She goes through everything. She seriously does take a mother's love to the extent. And in the next clip, I will be talking about Timmy's Rescue. This is serving STFU signing off.